My name's John Holbert. I work at the Community Media Center, and today we're here at the Westminster Senior Center with Mr. Cliff Keffer, who is going to talk to us about his various activities and everything within the military. Did you actually join the United States? You were in the United States Navy during World War II, correct?
Yes.
Did you join the Navy prior to Pearl Harbor?
I joined the Navy in 1942.
42, okay. And did you go to Great Lakes, Michigan?
Great Lakes, Illinois is where I took my basic training.
Okay, uh-huh.
And when I come out of basic training, they asked for volunteers. And I asked them what the volunteer was for. It said suicide. I said, sign me up. They signed me up for the Armed Guard, which was a Navy men that they put on the merchant ships to carry supplies overseas.
Right.
They sent me to Gulfport, Mississippi, to learn the procedures of cleaning and repairing guns.
Those were the large deck guns that were on the ships?
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They had 20 millimeters aircraft guns. They had 3-inch 75 millimeter bow gun, and they had a 5-inch. Some of them had bag guns and some of them had fixed ammunition on the stern.
Right.
They taught us to take care of all the guns that they had on the ships. I served on what we called then the Vigilant Virgin, and it was a Virginia Dare merchant ship. I made two trips one to Hull, England, one to Liverpool, England, and on the third trip we started for Murmansk.
All the way up into Russia.
On March the 6th, we left the Rock of Gibraltar out through the Mediterranean. They've got a write-up about the Virginia Dare and said it hit a mine. It didn't hit no mine. It was cut in two right approximately 6 feet forward of the engine room, and it was cut clear in half. We didn't lose that ship. We took the stern cable, run up through the passageways, dropped it down over the anchors, hooked it to the steam winch, and drawed that bow back up.
Put the ship back together out in the middle of the ocean.
Out in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
We took it in Tunis, North Africa, and we stayed on it. We was torpedoed on the 6th. We stayed on until the 15th of March. And the captain come around and said, get up, we're breaking up, we gotta get out of here. We went to pick the anchor up and didn't have enough keel to bring the anchor up, was gonna turn the bow over. So they dropped the anchor after putting a buoy on it so they could go back and pick it up. And we run into Tunis, North Africa, into the shipping channel, turned to the port side to put our stern towards the land, and backed right up on the bay, right up on the beach.
So you beached it and everything, so it wouldn't sink then, basically.
Saved our cargo and everything. We didn't lose none of our cargo.
Wow, that's incredible.
We come back across North Africa in what they call a troop ship, a troop train. That troop train turned out to be a cattle car.
No. No bunks or anything, just flat surface in the cattle car?
It's just a cattle car with the sides in, lattice work.
Mm-hmm.
They throwed sea rations in one corner of the car, milk cans with water, and on the other side, we come across North Africa.
Incredible. What time of year was that?
That was in March and April.
Okay, so it was relatively warm then, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In North Africa, it never really gets cold.
Oh, okay, okay. Uh-huh.
Now in Europe, it gets a little bit cool.
Yeah, yeah.
In Russia, it gets cold. So they brought us back to the States. We took another ship after being in Silver Springs, Florida for 30 days for recuperation leave, they called it. We took another ship, went through the Panama Canal and went to New Guinea, picked up MacArthur's troops and brought them back into the Philippines. When we come into the Philippines, there was 5 ships had troops on. On November the 11th of 1944, there was something better than 10 planes, suicide planes, come into the harbor where we was at. They was looking for the troop ships that had troops on.
Right.
They got all 5 of us.
Was there still troops on the ships when they hit, or were they evacuated?
We had 185 soldiers in number 1 hole, and the plane went right through the side, number 1.
Oh my gosh! Wow. And this was everybody. They were getting ready to
Embark in the Philippines.
in the Philippines. Yeah.
A lot of them never made it.
That's a shame. Wow.
It's part of life and part of war. We brought that ship back with a hole in the side. The 5 men stood side by side in a hole when a picture was taken of us in the hole of that ship.
Right.
We brought it back to the United States.
Was it empty when you came back? I mean, they just brought the ship back. Did they bring?
We brought the ship back.
But you didn't bring troops or anything like that.
No, they embarked. Well, some of the dead they transferred to other ships and brought them home.
So you just brought that back. Where did you bring that back, to San Diego or San Francisco?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. They have what, Mare Island Shipyard, I guess, is there in San Francisco? Right?
They released us in the ship into Treasure Island.
Treasure Island. Okay. Yeah.
And I was discharged from Treasure Island. But whenever I got back to Treasure Island, they reassigned me to DD 731, which was the Maddox. It was the one that was in Korea in, I believe it was 48 or 49, when the Korean War started.
Wow.
I was discharged in, I think, February of 1945, 46, and came back. I thumbed it across the United States, took my discharge in San Francisco because I wanted to see the United States.
Oh, wow, yeah,
And I thumbed back to Brownsville, Pennsylvania.
So you didn't go by train or anything like that? You just stuck your thumb out and...
Took my thumb out.
That must have been pretty cool. Did you have, I assume that you got some kind of script or something like that from the military, that you had money with you along the way and everything like that when you got discharged?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
A big duffel bag full of money, huh?
Well, the thing of it is, in the services, I've done a lot of gambling. We come back from England one time. I had all the money aboard ship. I had all the cigarettes aboard ship. I even had the men's dress blues.
Oh my goodness.
I'd loan them money to gamble with. They had to give me something for security.
Yeah. Some collateral, something along the way.
Whenever we got to the United States, we would come into Brooklyn. I stood at the head of the gangplank, and any man that was going home, I gave him the money to come home and come back on.
Oh, really? Wow.
I didn't expect it back and didn't get it back.
Right, yeah. But so this was when they were going on leave? Just going on leave?
Yes.
And then coming back? Liberty, I guess what they call it in the Navy. They were going on liberty and you gave them the money so they could get home and then come back to the ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, if a person was going to go out and spend the money in the bar room or someplace else, I loaned him money, but he paid it back with an interest.
You kept your concern going, I guess, right, with that?
Well, you know, the boys on the ship was the same as I was. They missed home.
Right, yeah.
They get back to the United States. I had all their money. They couldn't go home.
Right.
What are we going to do, leave them on the streets in New York?
Right, yeah.
Give them the money to go home on. Let them visit their family.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Especially the ones that lived close enough to where they could get Liberty for a day or two. And how long was Liberty then? Was it 4 or 5 days, or?
No, Liberty was for 7 days to 15 days.
Oh, wow, okay, so yeah.
And if somebody wanted to, they could put in for a 30-day leave, because being overseas, they'd give us 30 days when we come back after a year's time.
Right, yeah.
They give us a year's vacation every year.
Right, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, that'd be 30 days that you'd accrue during that period of time and everything.
Yes.
To get Liberty and everything like that. So anyway, you were, at the end of the war, you got discharged there in San Francisco?
After the war, I went back home to Western Pennsylvania and went to work in the coal mine.
Okay.
Went to work in a steel mill.
Right. That's right around Pittsburgh?
Right outside of Pittsburgh, McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I worked for a National Tube Company, Christie Park Works in McKeesport, before I went into the Navy. Making 5-inch 38 Navy shells, went into the Navy and fired the shells I made.
That's pretty cool.
Then in 1948, I wrecked my car, and I went down to Pittsburgh to go back to the Navy. And the recruiting officer said, "We don't want you. We've got our quota."
Okay.
I said, "To the Dickens with you, I'll join the Marines." So I started down the recruiting hall, and I come to the Army recruiting station. I stepped in and said, "What did you give me for joining the Army?" He said, "What do you mean give you?" I said, "Well, you got 6 years credit to my retirement. I've got 3 years of active duty. I've never had a court-martial, and I come out of the Navy as second-class petty officer." Said, "We'll give you a sergeant rating and send you to Kentucky." I said, "Give me your papers."
Wow, that quick, huh?
I went into the Army as a sergeant.
Yes,
After going through basic training in Kentucky.
Was that Fort Knox?
Fort Knox.
Fort Knox, yeah,
I then went to Aberdeen Proving Ground, and I taught mechanics.
Really? Wow.
I've been mechanically inclined all my life.
Right, yeah.
When I went to work for National Tube Company, I was not quite 18 years old. We had 72 machines in the factory. I could operate any one of the machines.
Wow.
And repair anything was wrong with them.
Right. And this is when you were 18, 19 years old.
18.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Then I joined the Army, went to Kentucky, Fort Knox, went to Aberdeen, taught mechanics there, went to Fort Hood, Texas, in the Armory Division. From Fort Hood, Texas, there was 8 of us that was in the services, went to Detroit Arsenal in Detroit, Michigan, and designed the control box of the M46 tank.
Okay.
Then they sent me back to Fort Knox, Kentucky, for Fort Hood, Texas, and they sent me to Fort Lewis, Washington, and I went to Korea with the 2nd Division, the 38th Field Artillery Battalion, as in charge of 2nd Division communication.
Okay. So was this after the Korean War started that you went there?
We went into Korea on September the 5th, 1950.
1950, okay.
They had the American GI and the South Korean soldier backed up, going to push them right out in the Pusan Bay. Right, yeah, My outfit, on the 20th day of September, we never fired a shot. We was with the 105 howitzers and 155 howitzers there in Pusan. We never fired a shot because we was allowed 5 shots a day.
Oh, wow.
We saved them till the 20th. Commander come around and said, "We're going to shoot today." and what we shot was white phosphorus. Do you know what white?
Oh yeah. That's a pretty severe anti-personnel artillery round, that's for sure.
You could see the troops, the North Korean troops, massed on the hillside
Right.
outside of Busan.
Uh-huh.
When we turned that white phosphorus loose, they rolled around.
They ran away after that, right?
No, they rolled on the ground trying to get away from it because a piece of shrapnel that big gets on you to burn a hole through you.
Oh yeah. That's why it's supposed to be. I believe it's supposed to be a marking round, but it's pretty fierce as anti-personnel round.
It
if you
is.
want to use that, yeah.
We broke that Busan perimeter.
Uh-huh.
We went right. We fought many battles between Busan and the Yalu River.
All the way up north, all the way through Korea.
All the way.
All the way up north. That's the Chinese borders, the Yalu River.
We were sitting on the Yalu River on Thanksgiving Day of 1950, and I would, the day before Thanksgiving Day, day before November 11th, not Thanksgiving, day before November 11th, my first sergeant come around and said to me, "Come on, Sergeant Keffer, let's go to breakfast." I put on my combat boots and put on my hat, rolled out of the tent and stood up, and my legs went out from under me. I said, "I ain't going, Sarge." He said, "Just a minute," and he went up to his tent, come back, and he had a fifth of whiskey. "Take a slug of this," he says, you'll feel all right." I turned that thing up and took a couple swallows of it, handed him back a fifth, and turned around and spit it out. It was green.
Really?
Nothing but gall.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh.
I had hepatitis.
Oh, really?
Called the medics. The medics come up and says, "You're going home." They put me in Osaka in a army hospital.
Yes, in Japan, right.
And in 3 months that I laid in the hospital, I learned to talk, write, and read Japanese.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Yeah, not an easy task.
No, it ain't. But you've got to stay after it because the symbols are so much alike.
Right, yeah. Uh-huh.
Then in Iwo Special School, they only had a motor pool. We set it up, and I taught the Japanese in their own language all of the procedures of mechanics.
Oh, really? No kidding.
And we'd take a vehicle coming out of Korea, was blown in half or motor gone wrong, and we would put that vehicle back together and send it back to Korea.
Ship it back to Korea and everything. That's amazing. Wow. Put it all back together. And so this was 1951, I guess.
This was in 50. In November, I went into the hospital. Right. And in March, November, December, January, February, 4 months I was in the hospital. March, I was discharged into the Iwo Special School.
Right. So that was March of 51 then.
51.
Yeah. Okay.
They come around to me and said, "We're going to cut orders on you in the morning you're going back to Korea." I said, "Not me. I've had enough."
Right.
Next morning they come around, and my nerves had worked me up so bad I just shaking the bed.
Oh, really? Wow. Because you were worried about having to go back to Korea?
Well, they'd have sent me right back into battle.
Right, yeah.
And I'd seen a battle from one end of Korea to the other.
Yeah, I know. All the way from Busan, all the way up to the Yalu. That was, tremendous. And that was from September to November, so it was about a 3-4 month span that you...
About 4 months.
Yeah,
And some of the North Koreans overran our position. We overran some of theirs. And we overran one of their positions whenever they didn't have time enough to take their big guns. They had a big gun that was a 12-inch, it was a Russian gun.
Really?
12-inch artillery piece.
Right.
And they had to leave it.
Was that ground mounted? Was it ground mounted?
Yes.
Wheeled?
On wheels.
Yeah, okay. So did we keep that then?
Oh, we made it inoperable.
Oh, okay.
Any of their artillery, we overran. We made it inoperable so they couldn't come back and use it.
Right.
Because who knows whenever they're going to drive us back out of there.
True, yeah.
And whenever we went across the demilitarized zone, we never even stopped. We just kept on moving. We fought many battles. We at one time were surrounded for 21 days. Nobody could get into us, and we couldn't get out.
Was this up north?
In North Korea,
Yeah.
we lost one man in 21 days.
Wow, that's incredible, especially since they couldn't get to you. Now, what were you? What was your function at that time? Were you still a signalman when you were doing that, or you said that you were with a field artillery unit? But were you signalman with them?
I was in charge of the communication, but everybody shoots.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, being surrounded like that. But your basic function, your basic MOS and everything was working with signal, with the communications.
My primary function was keep communications in between the outposts and the firing stations.
Right, okay. So that's by landline then. You ran landline out
Yes.
to those guys.
We one day we ran 24-mile line.
Oh my gosh.
And I ran every step of the road.
Pulling one of those spools behind you, huh?
Roll off the road.
What's that?
Roll that wire off of the road.
There you go, yeah. Carry it along the road and everything.
It's the only way you could run, because if you had your reel of wire on the back of the car, on the back of the weapons carrier, it put it right out in the middle of the road.
Right.
Some tank come along and cut your wire out.
That's right, yeah. Then you lose your communications right away and everything.
We went into one position, and I was on the switchboard that night. I stood switchboard watch along with my men. If I asked a man to do something, I could do it. I had to.
Right.
We were on the switchboard one night, and the line went dead. I got a man, told him, "Get my crew. We're going to go find out why." We run back the line to where the break was in the line. I cut into our switchboard, and I told the man, I found the break. I'm now going to repair it. Cut into the other line. It wasn't my line at all. There was a bunch of gooks on it talking.
My goodness.
Bunch
Really?
of North Koreans.
So they had tapped into the
They had
U.S.
tapped
line?
into my line.
Oh, really? Oh, no kidding. Wow. So what did you do then?
I got back on the other phone and I told him, "I'm getting the heck out of here, boy. I'm coming back." You can take a switchboard. If you simplex that switchboard, you can break all lines and talk through the ground.
Oh, really? Okay.
You don't break communication. It's the same thing as talking on a radio.
Right.
I mean, you're doing it with a switchboard
Right.
in phones.
So the primary means of communication in those days was by landline. Very limited radio.
We had radio. We didn't very seldom use that.
Right.
Because you can pick up radio signals real easy.
Yeah.
Find out what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't have the encryption capability then like we do now.
I know
where they
that.
can encrypt everything. It was just in the plane that you were talking and everything.
Now you can take any radio station here. You can take a machine and interrupt their broadcasting, cut all sound out from them.
Right. Yeah.
We had nothing like that over in Korea. You worked with what you had.
Right. Yeah.
And I was born and raised on a farm out in the hills, never got an education. Whenever we come here to the senior center, school board had a meeting here, and I asked the lady at the charge of it, I said, "Can I talk to you?" She says, "Oh, yes." I said, "I'd like to know what you're doing for the young people coming out of high school today to go to college, because they can't afford it." She says, "How much education do you have, Mr. Keffer?" I said, I never walked through a high school door. I read everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was aboard ship, I read every book that was aboard ship. Whenever I got run done with them, I started reading medical books. A medical book will drive you crazy, especially if you haven't had any training on it.
Right, all the terminology and all that, yeah.
Sir?
All the terminology and everything in the book
Oh,
and everything
yes.
to understand all that, yeah.
But you know, the trouble with our young people today, even in my time, they went to school, and if they had no interest in what tomorrow was going to be, they never learned to live today. You don't live an education by reading a book. You get an education by studying that book.
Right.
Knowing what it says and putting the words into action.
Right.
Anything I read, I can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And anything mechanical I can read, I can take it from my brain and put it on the end of my fingers.
So back to Korea. You ended your Army service in Japan then? You did not go back to Korea, correct?
I didn't go back to Korea. I taught mechanics until November the 12th. They come around to me and says, "You're going home today." And the petty officer, the warrant officer, said, "Before you go, come on out here. We're going to pitch a game of horseshoes." Because I pitched horseshoes with him every day.
Oh, did you? Okay. He wanted to get his last game in before you left.
He wanted to try to get to beat me the last game. I was there.
Right.
But
so this would have been 1952 at that
51.
point? Oh, this was 51.
I
Okay.
discharged in November the 14th in
51.
In 51.
Right, okay.
In Pennsylvania, right above Harrisburg. What's the name of the?
Carlisle?
No. It's an Army station in Pennsylvania.
Is that Tobiana? Tobiana?
No.
Army Depot? I know there's a...
Indiantown Gap.
Indiantown Gap, okay, there you go, right, okay.
I discharged out of Indiantown Gap.
Right, so they brought you back from Japan then, at that point?
Flew me into Washington, in through Alaska,
right.
Down into Washington, put me on a troop train,
Oh, you rode by train then, huh?
Put me into Indiantown Gap.
Right.
And I was discharged from Indiantown Gap, and I took a discharge into Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
Because I'd met a young lady down there I wanted to marry.
You wanted to go back and see her, huh?
I did go back and see her.
So then you left, so that was 1951, and then did you go back to Pittsburgh area to work, or
No,
you
I
stayed
stayed
here in Baltimore? This is when you started with the body shop work and everything, I guess, huh?
Yes, and I went into business on Eastern Avenue in Baltimore, down around Essex. I went into business with a guy that was in transmission business, and the government, 3 months straight, come into my office and check my books. Last time they come in, I said, "I'm going to do you a favor." He said, "What's that?" I said, "I'm going to give you the business." And threw my keys out on the desk, said, "I'm going home." And I closed that business up right there.
Oh, really?
And I went back to McKenna Pontiac, started to work as a mechanic.
Right.
And I was in the mechanical business till 1963. I come home, said to my wife, "I'm going into managing." She, first week, she said to me, "You know what you've done?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I don't think you do." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You cut your pay in half."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Give me 3 years. We'll be making money long before that."
Mm-hmm.
And we made money.
Yeah.
Like I say, I took Joe Grimm Ford in 1970, and I put in for a vacation in '72. Said, "I'm going to Europe." can take my family. He let me set up my vacation for 3 weeks. My car rental, I had rented a car in Holland. My hotel reservations and all was made. He come around to me and says, you can't take 3 weeks. I said, what do you mean I can't take 3 weeks? He said, my managers don't take 3 weeks. I said, I ain't your manager. He said, what do you mean? I said, I quit yesterday. Get my pay. And I quit and went to Europe. When I come back, there was a registered letter at the post office for me to go over and take over Monarch Lincoln Mercury.
Wow.
I went over to Monarch Lincoln Mercury, and I was there less than 3 months. The factory man walked in and said to me, you're going to Biddorf Ford over on Reicherstown Road and Northern Parkway. I said, I'm satisfied here. He said, we want to open a body shop over there. We want to sell a dealership, and you're our manager. I went over to Biddorf Ford, and I was there in less than 3 months. They sold a dealership. I had set the body shop up, had an operation, and was making money for them in less than 3 months.
Wow, incredible. So then what did you do after that? What did you do after that?
Well, I went to, Joe Grimm Ford called me 21 times in 1 week, wanted me back.
Right.
I told him, I'm not coming, Joe. You was Mr. Grimm to me before you left me set up my itinerary for Europe. Now you're Joe Grimm. You're a younger man than I am, and I don't owe you any respect. You owe it to me.
Right. Mm.
So he talked me into coming back. And I went back to Joe Grimm, and I stayed with him till 76. 76, I went to Volvo over in Towson area, run that till their body shop went out of business. And then I went to Al Packer Ford down in Rockville, and I run Al Packer Ford for 3 years. And in 79, they sold Al Packer Ford to a man by the name of Kalimsky. He told me in my office, said, Mr. Keffer, because of your condition of your body shop and the money you make for the company is one of the selling points that I bought the dealership. On January the 1st, 1980, he walked into my office and threw a forecast out on my desk, said we want a 30% increase in output. And I looked at him and laughed. So what's the matter? He said, you were asking for it, and I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to try to give it to you, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I said, what's that? He said, you're not going to get it. The Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, they've all left the door open for the Japanese manufacturer to take over our automotive industry. And they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to increase the output of a body shop in a year whenever another company's taking over the industry.
Right.
I said, I wasn't born yesterday. I hope to God I don't die tomorrow. But whatever comes, you're not going to get this much money you're asking for.
Right.
So they put me in the hospital with ulcers.
It drove you crazy, I guess, huh?
Oh, they put the pressure on. And I was hunkered down alongside of a car writing an estimate. And I stood up. Whenever I stood up, I felt something on my throat. And I walked over and spit it out. I spit out a clot of blood that big.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
I called my wife and told her, I said, call the doctor and tell him I'm on my way. And I drove from Rockville to Reynoldstown, to Finksburg, back to Reynoldstown to the doctor. And they put me in the hospital with ulcers.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I'd like to ask is back to your military service. If somebody was going to come to you today and ask, should I join the military, what would your answer be?
I would ask that man his background. Because let me tell you one thing. I don't care where you go to in the military. If you got man principles about you, it'll bring you out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And if you don't have those principles, it'll drive you to the street. It'll make something out of you you'll not be proud of.
So what do you mean by that?
I mean, you can take a man and put him into service, and if he don't have any principles about him, it don't make a man out of him. It makes a punk out of him.
Oh, wow, okay. So what, I mean, would there be a particular service that you would recommend somebody, as Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, that somebody would
They're all
join?
good.
Uh-huh.
They're all good. Now the Marines teach you you're too much of a man. And one man is only one man. I don't care who he is. And I don't know what they teach now, but they used to teach a Marine that he could lick 3 men.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw one Marine could lick me, let alone one man.
Right. So would you, if you had the chance to do it all over again, would you do the?
I wouldn't take $1 million for what I've seen.
Uh-huh.
Get this, $1 million?
So you do it all the same all over
But
again?
I wouldn't give 10 cents to see it again.
To what?
I wouldn't give 10 cents to see it again.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Good experience, but not something that you'd want to repeat if you didn't have to.
I've got a grandson right now that's 25 years old. I advised him, his mother didn't want him to, and I lost his mother in May. I lost my wife 5 years ago, February 24th. I lost my daughter this past May, the 24th. She's 57 years old, just 30 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I advised my grandson, if you want to go to the services, take the Navy, go in, learn a trade. The experience and the traveling experience that you get can't be compared. They'll show you the world. You might have to look at it through a porthole, but you'll see the world.
Right.
And all the time your ship is on water, you're sleeping between white sheets. In the Army, they'll show you the world too, but you're sleeping in a foxhole in the mud.
I know that from my experience, yes, that's true.
Like I told you, I never got an education, but I never stopped learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning even today.
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk to any man. I don't care who he is. He only puts his pants on the same way I do, one leg at a time.
Right, yeah, that's true. So is there anything else that you'd like to share about your your experiences? You joined, I guess, during hostilities and everything, and then were out for a while, and then went back. And
the one thing I'll say to any man at any place: be a man and be yourself.
That's true. That's good advice for anybody, anytime, I guess, huh? Yeah.
You cannot try to imitate somebody else and be anything but an imitator.
Right. Yeah.
Be yourself.
Be yourself. That's true. Well, it's good talking to you today. We appreciate your
It's
time
my
and effort and
pleasure.
everything, and thanks for your service. We appreciate it very much.
Hey, I gladly gave my service, and I'm proud of it. And I've told many a man, I've seen every type of government that there is in the world, even with all of our faults, and we have them. There's no government as good as ours.
Yeah, in the United States of America, you mean? Yeah, I agree with that. Well, again, thanks a lot, Cliff. It was good talking to you today.